the next speaker talking about growing things in stores. And here we have Claire Gusko, who is head of growth at German company Infarm.
Hi, my name's Claire Gusko. I am the head of growth at Infarm, and we are the urban farming company out of Berlin. I'm actually filling in for Osnet, who is our CMO and one of our co-founders. She was unable to make it because of some other commitments. But I'm just here to give you a quick intro to Infarm. Just as a quick kind of precursor to the vision and what we're doing, Infarm was founded in 2013 by Erez, Osnat, and Guy. Erez and Guy are brothers, and Osnat is Erez's partner, so we're practically a family-run company. They moved out of Tel Aviv to Berlin, found out pretty quickly that the quality of food that they were getting in Berlin was nowhere near as good as in Israel. So they Googled some YouTube DIY videos and found out how to make their own hydroponic systems in their own apartment. That quickly then developed into them taking an Airstream trailer, which is one of those silver bullet kind of US road trip trailers that you can get, and turning it into a mobile research station. They then moved that to the Prinzessinnengarten in Berlin, which is our urban farming garden in the center of the city. And yeah, it quickly developed into what we now call Infarm. The way that we've been doing our business has been running for about a year and a half. So it took a little bit of time for us to get to the point where we were able to develop the technology and our business model to what it is today. But we're pretty confident that we're well on our way to solving one of the biggest questions that has been addressed multiple times already in the span of this morning. How are we going to feed the people of tomorrow? As you can see, and has been mentioned before, so maybe I'll just fly through this one. There's lack of arable land. Agricultural runoff is a huge problem, especially in the States. We're wasting a huge amount of our food that we do have, and there is an incredibly lengthy supply chain. All of our food, I think on average, it travels around 2,400 kilometers. So this is how you have kind of asparagus out of Thailand in your supermarket aisles in London, for example. Our solution is to create what we are calling well, this is a global farming network. We're in Berlin right now, so we're creating a farming network in Berlin. We want to convert 1 million square meters in 100 cities into farms with our technology. And essentially what we're trying to do is we're wanting to become the fruit and vegetable supplier of the city. The vision is to create a living and breathing system, so the network will be just as dynamic, just as flexible, and on top of that, transparent and accountable, if you can say that about a system, to the very, very particular needs of the city itself. Every city is different. Stockholm is wildly different to Berlin. Berlin is very different to Copenhagen. And so our network and the way that we have built up our farms, we believe will be able to adapt to the very specific needs of the very individual and very unique people living inside of these cities. A fundamental kind of principle that runs throughout all of the things that we do at Infarm is biomimicry. So nature does it best. Unfortunately, we've now gotten to the point where nature can no longer satisfy our needs because we have taken it, let's say, that much further. So we believe that our technology, and as much as it can, it should mimic nature as far as possible. So it's a little bit difficult to see here, and it's a bit of a shame that this picture is pixelated now. But our growing spiral is actually designed or inspired by the petal constellation of the sunflower. It's one of the most space-efficient arrangements in nature. So that's just one of the things, you know, and also the way that our growers move throughout the cities, we try to kind of let ourselves be inspired by how mushrooms kind of integrate themselves into a different system as well. So this is a picture of one of our farming units. This is our 5-layer system. We have 2 sizes, 5 layers and 7 layers. And our entire system and the entire constellation of all of our farms is built upon these 2 building blocks. So each building block is its own controlled environment. It can actually control everything from light spectrums to temperature to air humidity to everything that the plants need in order for them to grow. Because you're creating an optimal environment for growth, it also means that there's a lot of stability that we can promise. We know exactly how long the plant is going to take to go from seedling to mature plant. But you can also play around with the environmental kind of factors and give the plants maybe some different qualities depending on what you need. You can make your basil a little bit sweeter, you can make it a little bit less sweet, you can make it a little bit more bitter depending on the temperature changes, for example. So there's a lot of very interesting ways that you can play around with it. One of my favorite parts of InFarm is actually our central farming platform. All of our farms, because they are distributed, they are also connected through this platform. The platform collects all of the different growth data from our plants, meaning that it can actually now, we've gotten it to the point where I think we just reached our 6 million data point mark a couple of days ago, where it can now, depending on what we call growing recipes that our plant doctors put into the system, it can automatically adjust itself and check if the plants are growing well, and if they're not, without any intervention on our part, can actually adapt the system so that the plants then kind of get back into a regulated, let's call it, zone. And we're hoping that eventually the system will become so sophisticated that it can actually a little bit predict the demands and the different changing needs of the population, depending on seasons, for example. Some people like to eat more salad in the summer, some don't. Basil is very hot in the summer as well. If you're making a lot of cocktails in the winter, maybe not so much. So there's various different ways that we're actually collecting a lot of data to really, as I said before, create a system that lives and breathes with the different needs of the city and the individuals within it. This is a slightly better picture of our spiral. This, aside from being inspired by the sunflower, it also means that we can create what we call a perpetual harvest. So it's not a batch system where you put the plants in, you wait 30 days, you take all of them out, and the next batch goes in. You can actually harvest every day from every single tray. The young plants are planted in the middle, and then they slowly kind of move out on this track, and so you harvest from the outside, and you continuously spin them. It also means that because it is so space efficient, every plant only gets as much space as it actually needs. So each of our trays, we believe, actually has a much higher output than a lot of our competitors, because the young plants only get a small amount of space, and the large plants get a lot. These are actually, I'm just going to maybe explain the two pictures first. This is Good Bank. This was one of our first restaurant clients in Berlin. They have 3 of our large systems, and we provide all of the salads that they use in their salad bar. And this is one of the systems in Edeka. Edeka is currently our biggest retail client in Berlin. We are now in 12 locations and counting, hoping to go into another 25 next year, and also opening up our next cities in 2018. So our kind of biggest mission is to distribute the farms and not the produce. This means that there are virtually 0 food miles, and you know exactly where your plant came from. The coriander that is harvested here in the system was grown here in the system, and it is the one that you take home. So you know that it didn't pass through multiple hands. There's not that much in transparency, and you also know from us that we don't use any chemical pesticides, no GMO seeds. So we're trying to kind of redefine the food supply chain and give you ownership again of where your food comes from and what it is. And then also kind of reintroduce you to what it means to, let's say, eat well. I'm sure a lot of us eat well, but the quality of our food is not always as high as we believe it to be. So this is where our revolutionary taste comes in. Because our plants are sold still living, which means they're sold with the roots and in the substrate, it means that you can actually take a living plant home. It means it has its full 100% of its nutritional composition still intact. And nutrition actually adds to, well, is the main reason why some food is more flavorful than others. And so we believe that the taste and the nutrition of our plants are of a much, much higher quality than some of the other existing products that you have, which were essentially always cut plants, cut herbs, cut salads, which were flown in from Spain, from Belgium, from Holland. It's just a couple of nice pictures of some of our food. This is our dill and our salmon. But I'd just like to maybe take a couple minutes to talk about where we, as InFarm, see this journey going. We're not only trying to be the fruit and vegetable supplier of the cities down the line, we're hoping to actually facilitate the redefinition of what it means to buy food. So as far as going, I mean, whether it be having it delivered to your door or actually going into a store where the store or some form of system, even if it is an InFarm one or if it's somebody else's or it's a community system, knows exactly what your needs are in terms of your health and maybe even your health needs, but also knows what your preferences and your non-preferences are, and it can very, very finely tune exactly what you get from that supermarket. It also means that there's less waste, but it also means that there's a lot more different ways for you to develop the way that you you eat, because a system can actually suggest to you that there are different basil plants or that there are different fruits or vegetables that might actually, according to different information, data points that they have gathered from your peers, for example, it can actually tailor to your very, very specific individual profile. And with systems such as InFarms, we can then farm on demand to meet that very, very specific profile. So we believe that this is a very, very exciting way that not only InFarm, but the whole food industry could develop. And yeah, if there are any questions, I will be here for the rest of the day, or happy to answer them now if we have time.
Sure. We have a question here from the first row, Carolina.
Can you farm anything else than herbs?
Yes, so we're at leafy greens right now. They're incredibly energy efficient because the leaves are the the parts of the plant that take in the energy. But you can essentially grow anything in a hydroponic system. So we do tomatoes, we've done strawberries, we're also experimenting with mushrooms now. So possibilities are endless. It's also just a matter of what is economical right now with the technology that we have available for us.
A question here then for you. I'm kind of wondering about unit economics.
Yeah.
So where are we now?
So without kind of divulging too many numbers, we're in a pretty comfortable place right now. The founders actually, because we're working on a building block approach, they needed to make sure that from the first building block, so from the first 5-layer system, which takes up 2 square meters of space, making sure that in terms of unit economics was already an economic decision for anybody to make, not just for us, but also for our clients. So for the clients that we have, we did the math, and we can actually promise, or we do promise a higher profit per square meter for every 2 square meters of space that they give us into their stores. So this is kind of what we also think is one of the biggest USPs of InFarm. You don't need to do it at large scale in order for it to make financial sense for you. You can already do it with the first 2 square meters that you're giving us inside your store, inside your restaurant, in your building, in your office.
Well, a slightly more philosophical question. What would you say is most important in the future, the data or the food?
It's not one or the other. It can be both. I think the data, there's a little bit of an apprehension right now to mix food with data. I think because of our apprehension to GMO and modified and optimized, they all seem like very clinical words that we don't want to put in together with what we eat. But at the end of the day, if you're willing to optimize every single part of your life, it would also make sense to use data to not only optimize, but to, we believe, enrich the way that we eat. There's a lot of different plants and a lot of different things that we don't have access to right now because the supply chain is too long. So many plant varieties that would never survive. And technologies like this can bring them right back into the city. And then also kind of reintroduce us to a lot of different foods that we have lost contact with. And I think data and technology, it's a facilitator. And as soon as you stop looking at it as an enemy or something to be scared, but rather something that can enrich, I think we're already making a much larger step towards creating a new food system.
If I reframe the question a little,
yeah.
Can you be a food company in the future without knowing data?
No.
No? Okay. So thank you very much. Very short and concise answer to that. Thank you very much, Claire Gusko. We'll see you back on stage shortly.